Hi everyone, this is Dan and this is Disintegration Street Volume 3 by Brenden Swan. Those of you who remember, I have reviewed a lot of this series. This is a crowdfunded comic. I know I've been on a run of just reviewing crowdfunding comics the last month or so, just because there's a big backlog of books that I've got in, and I've just been trying to find time to basically review all of them. Some of them I've read several times. It just takes me a while to kind of collect my thoughts on what I think about them. And this one, for those of you who remember, I have praised to the moon. I actually have here the first two volumes here. This is Disintegration Street Volume 1 and Disintegration Street Volume 2. So you got 3 volumes right here. Brenden Swan is well over hundreds, I think probably almost 200 pages of content right now. And one interesting thing to note is the printer is different for Volume 1. It is using this Kablam digital printing. And I do have to say, when I first reviewed this, I thought the digital printing for Volume 1 was actually pretty solid for digital printing. Like, I was actually genuinely impressed by the digital printing done here. Normally, digital prints are kind of, you know, mediocre to acceptable in print quality, but these new digital printers are actually pretty impressive, especially for what they got. I believe Brenden Swan switched printers for these guys because they no longer have the Kablam in the back. It's a totally different printer. It's also a totally different texture. This has kind of like a very glossy, gritty texture, and then he goes to a matte finish in this one. And then the overall paper quality is a little different on the inside too. All of it's pretty high quality. Which is, again, impressive for those of you who remember the series, because none of these books have ever really reached high money quantity. I think in general, Brenden Swan generally raises maybe $5,000 on each one of these projects. They're all heavily underfunded, and the fact that he was able to create this much stuff, this much content, off what I think is maybe like 20 grand total, is very impressive, even if you're not a fan of the art style here, which I think is probably the one thing I have to note for those of you who are not familiar with Disintegration Street, and this is the first video you've seen of this. The art style is very, very unique. It's very manga inspired and very heavy on ink brush work, so it can be an acquired taste for sure. One thing I do want to note about Disintegration Street, and I'll just kind of show it right here, when he does more natural backgrounds in the style that he's going for here, Brenden Swan, Disintegration Street can be very, very pretty. Now, the moment he has to do buildings or interior, like this is kind of like a really bad example right here, if you guys can see it. The moment he has to do interiors or buildings, his style, I would say this freeform style that he's going for in Disintegration Street doesn't really work out. And this was kind of my criticisms of Volume 1, Volume 2, and it remains my criticism of Volume 3. Now, to be fair, I think in total I may have spent on all of this for crowdfunding about, let's say like $60, maybe $70 on his crowdfunders, right? And the content that I got for it was infinite, especially in terms of story and actually readability and ability to go back and reread this, because Disintegration Street is actually pretty entertaining for a independent amateur effort. But yeah, the entertainment value that I got out of Disintegration Street was so much higher than a lot of other crowdfunders that it's one of those things where, like, yeah, I really don't like the way he does backgrounds in Disintegration Street, but I still greatly enjoyed this series. And I believe he's got, I think, 1 or 2 more volumes left, and that's it. And that is kind of a bummer. I think he blew the doors off with Volume 1. Volume 1, as you can see, is pretty darn big. This is basically the size of a full-size manga, right? And, for those of you who understand how manga works, they're not, the creators in Japan or Korea or whatever, they don't create those volumes at one time and sell them at one time. They're typically published through a magazine, like an anthology. And those anthologies are sold with a bunch of other stories ongoing. They, create a ton of money and publication circulation. And then that helps advertise the volumes when they come out, and that's how the Japanese are able to generate these massive volumes for the cheap price of $9.99, $14.99, whatever it is that you see these Japanese comic collections for, right? So the fact that Brenden Swan did this on his own, no publication, no support, no subsidies, other than the investments that he got from his crowdfunder, which was maybe 5K, 10K, something like that. Again, I can't stress how impressive this effort has been by Brenden Swan. And I do believe strongly that he's in it for the long haul. I think this is kind of like a personal story for him that he's always wanted to draw and write. So I truly believe he's going to finish this thing and distribute this thing regardless. So for those of you who actually picked this up, I think you're going to get, in my opinion, a great value for supporting him. Now, as far as Volume 3, sort of a review of this book, the spoiler-free review is pretty darn good. I would say, in general, it's actually a little bit better than Volume 2. It's actually pretty... There are some pretty funny scenes here, and I think... Well, here, let me go right here. Yeah, Brenden starts messing with horror a little bit here, and it's pretty gruesome. And there's definitely a lot of, like, shock value throughout this. And again, he also has a lot of, like, really funny... funny jokes here that are very much a reference to manga and all the stuff that he reads. But yeah, overall, I thought this volume had a lot more twists and turns. The plot moved forward a lot quicker and a lot faster. And I think we are slowly zeroing in onto the climax of this story here. So those who aren't familiar with manga, almost all manga styles tend to have a longer storytelling arc. And that is the case for Disintegration Street. And it's okay, and again, this is kind of the point that I've made in the past about decompression. You can be decompressed when a lot of stuff is happening and it's very entertaining. Every single page is full of entertainment and interesting things, or very cool action, or very intense. In my opinion, you have to be very, very talented in terms of keeping the reader's attention if you're going to be very decompressed. Because the problem with if you're not, right, if your art isn't exciting, if your action is not, pulse pumping, if you're not able to make the reader laugh, if you're trying to go for comedy, or freak out if you're trying to go for horror, you're not going to be able to keep them turning the page, and they're just going to feel like the book is dragging on and on and on, right? So one thing I will, give Brenden Swan a lot of credit for in this issue is he's kind of really improving in terms of his ability to master that style of storytelling. Now, I am very worried about, because I believe he's going to do another short story, just like Lovejoy, which was his first crowdfunder, was like a little tiny 24-page comic, which was really good. So I am curious if he's going to switch gears back to compressed storytelling, which is what he's going to do next. But so far, I've been impressed. This has been an incredible effort. So let's get into the spoilers a little bit here. So what's going on right here is we're continuing on the quest to find out who Ramona is. So anyway, spoiler-free, quick answer. Totally recommend get it if you can, or get it as a package if you can, or if in the long run, you just want to get the whole thing at one time and Brenden's complete. Totally recommend it. But the quick thing here, as far as spoilers, Akiko, the investigative reporter here, basically works with Charlotte and Lillian and Gon to continue investigating who Ramona is. They eventually start getting attacked by these ninjas, who are actually the servants of Mr. Mayor. And eventually, Akiko is actually able to figure out a lot of the past of Disintegration Street, and the relationship of Mrs. Paisley, of Elise Stillwater, of herself, who she turns out to be a survivor of Disintegration Street. And a little bit of tragedy happens, and we lose a main character in the middle of this. We also find out that this mischievous character, oh god, what's her name again? I'm trying to remember. Yeah, this character, Amy. Yeah, Amy. She ends up being a love robot, similar to what was in Lovejoy, and they end up having to basically escape her trying to kill them through half of the issue before they eventually come together and decide one last effort to go find out who Ramona is after they have defeated her and the mayor. So a lot of action, a lot of stuff happens, a lot of characters we say goodbye to in this issue. But overall, it's the right book for what Brenden Swan needs in this series. I felt that Volume 2 kind of went in like a random direction. And even though Volume 2 was interesting, I didn't feel it helped a little bit. I felt Volume 1 started strong, and then Volume 2 kind of languished a little bit. I still thought it was good and I enjoyed it, but I kind of was questioning where Brenden Swan was going with this whole thing. Whereas Volume 3 really kicks it into high gear, and I really feel like, okay, we're going somewhere plot-wise with this book. And I'm very, very intrigued to see where this ends up in Volume 4 and maybe Volume 5. I'm not sure if it's 4 or 5 volumes that Brenden Swan's going with right here. But yeah, no, this was excellent. You know, Brenden, if you're watching this, keep it up, buddy. You know, maybe, you know, consider doing less of those backgrounds you like to do. Or consider using, you know, a straight edge. Because I don't think those backgrounds are going to work long-term wise, but everything else is gorgeous. But yeah, man, this has been bomb, dude. I can't wait to see what the next volume is going to do for this guy. All right, guys. Anyway, that is it. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Hit the bell for notifications. If you got any comments on Disintegration Street Volume 3 or any of them, to be honest, leave it down below, and I will see you next time.